Have you ever thought or even said to other people that the book you're writing was for everyone? That's actually one of the biggest mistakes that you can make. In today's video, you'll learn who your ideal reader is, why you need one, and how to actually figure out why they're important and how they can help you as a writer. Hey y'all, welcome to today's Live with Lisa. If you're new here, my name is Lisa, and I create videos that help you learn how to write and live God's way. If you want to honor God with both your life and your writing, this is the place for you. Every week, we go live here in partnership with Our Given Purpose Ministries, which is an amazing ministry founded by my dear friend, Tori Slaughter, to help you grow in your walk with God and to get plugged in to godly community. So not only can you watch today's live on YouTube and Instagram, but on the Our Given Purpose Ministries Facebook page as well. So make sure you get connected there and learn more about that incredible ministry. So today we are talking about ideal readers. This is one of those mistakes I think a lot of writers make in the writing process in terms of just not understanding why they're important, why they're necessary. I think a lot of writers get stuck because they believe their book is for everyone. And so we're going to bust that myth right up front. First and foremost, your book is not for everyone. Your book is not for everyone. Now, this can be confusing, especially for kingdom writers in particular, because we want to believe that our books are for everyone. We're writing for God. We want to spread the message of who Jesus is. We want to let the world know who Jesus is. And so we believe that our book is for everyone. But there is a difference between knowing that the gospel is for everyone and knowing that our particular book that might reflect the gospel is for everyone. Those are two different things. And it's important for us to understand that. The gospel, as far as who Jesus is, the message of Jesus Christ, and everything related to it, that is for everyone. And we do want to share that message as much as we can. But your book is a product that needs to be sold. Your book is a product that needs to be marketed to a particular audience. And so even if your book is about the gospel, is about Jesus Christ, is meant to be shared as far as what the gospel message is, that doesn't mean that your book is for everyone. It is a product that needs to be targeted to a particular audience. And so we want to make sure that we understand that truth up front. Your book is not going to appeal to everyone, and it's not supposed to. That's okay. When you write for everyone, or you try to write for everyone, your book is going to run into problems. It's going to be overly general and it'll lack relatability. People won't really know what category to put it in or what box to put it in. And a lot of times different audiences want different things. They have different expectations. And so if you try to appeal to everyone, the opposite ends up happening. You end up appealing to no one or very few people. And so we want to avoid that mistake. The second issue is that knowing that your book doesn't appeal to everyone actually is a good thing because it helps you avoid unrealistic expectations. It helps you make sure that you recognize who you're targeting and be intentional about targeting that audience. And that's going to actually give you more success, believe it or not, than trying to cater your book to everyone and try to have this universal appeal that isn't really possible. So if you have a target in mind, you know what you're aiming at. You know what who you're trying to reach and who you're not trying to reach. And it actually helps you to be more targeted and more focused in your approach. All right, let's go into the comments for a moment here. All right. Tori says, oh, that is so true. It's like we have a gospel complex. Yes. I love how you put that, Tori. That's so good. Yes. We think that because the gospel is for everyone, that our book and everything that we create that reflects the gospel is for everyone as well. And that's just not how marketing works. We have to be intentional and wise and strategic about how we purpose the things that we create, even when those things are meant to honor God. And Tori says, yes, even writing devotionals has a specific audience. Thank you for sharing this. Yes, and thank you for bringing that up, Tori. I love the idea of using devotionals as an example. Absolutely. There are devotionals designed for women. There are devotionals designed for men. There are devotionals designed for young professionals. There are devotionals designed for older professionals, for college students, all different types of devotionals. And yet, all of them have the expressed purpose of glorifying God and drawing people closer to Him. But we speak differently to different people and different audiences. And that's why we have to be intentional and strategic when we are looking at our ideal reader. Absolutely. So now that we know that our book is not for everyone, we've established that. What we need to know next is why you need to know exactly who your ideal reader is. Why is that important? The first reason is it helps you to write with clarity and specificity. When you know exactly who you're talking to, you can be, as I said earlier, much more targeted in your approach. You know what words to use, you know what examples to use, you know what's going to be effective in reaching that particular person or that particular group of people. And so it allows you to really drill down and figure out the most effective way of speaking to that particular audience. The second thing that it does is it gives your words more impact and power. It allows you to really think through what that particular audience is looking for and to choose a way of writing and connecting with them that will have more impact and really affect them and compel them with what you're trying to say. If you're writing for just anybody, it's hard for your words to have impact because they'll affect some people but not others, and it's just not the way communication works. When we are able to identify who we're speaking to, and our words will be more compelling because we're more likely to reach them. Another reason we need to know who our ideal reader is because it helps your audience decide whether your book is right for them. And that's actually what you want. I know that might sound confusing. Like, why would I want my audience to, again, we think many times as kingdom writers that our book is for everyone and we want everyone to be interested. But the truth is, if people are not the right audience for our book, we want them to know that quickly. We want them to be able to identify that quickly and to move on to something that's right for them. We want the people who are going to gravitate to our message to understand that quickly as well and to get drawn in and to become more curious. And so it's important for us to recognize who we're speaking to so that we can help our audience be able to identify and make a decision about whether our book is right for them. Here's an example of what this can look like. Let's say you're writing a book and you are targeting a particular audience. I'm going to describe two different types of audiences for you. And I want you to think about which one is more clear, which is the clearer audience. The first one is women ages 25 to 40, right? It's that an age range, women ages 25 to 40. That's the first audience. The second audience is women between the ages of 25 and 40 who have young children and who are looking for their first house. Now, which audience is clearer in your mind? Who do you think will be more likely, or you have a clearer sense of what type of book might be effective for that audience? Right? It's the second one, right? The second group, you already have an idea in your mind of what types of books might appeal to that particular audience, what books they might not like, right? If you think about it, you don't even have to be a real estate agent. You don't have to have any knowledge of real estate. But if you, just by having that audience in mind and having those clear aspects of that audience, you start to see what types of books would be effective for them and which ones probably wouldn't be, right? If you've written a book as a real estate agent about how to invest in your first, how to get your, how to buy an apartment complex, for example, right? That's probably not going to reach that audience that are women between the ages of 25 to 40 who have young children and are looking to just buy their first house for themselves, right? They may not be as interested in another type of book, right? And also, if you are primarily work with people who are renters and wanting to help them find apartments, right? Then they might not be interested in that book either, right? Because they're not ready to buy yet. So that's just an example of how knowing your audience can make a huge difference in helping you be able to identify who to target with your marketing and who not to, and how people will be able to identify for themselves whether your book is right for them, just by you being more intentional with understanding who your audience is. And then it affects all kinds of things like the title of your book and how you describe it, your descriptions of it, the keywords that you might use. All of those things are impacted by you having a clear vision of who your ideal reader is. It's very important. All right, let's go into some more comments. Tori says, wow, this is so good and very practical. When we need a problem solved, we want the manager so we can speak to someone in charge. Writing with authority shifts the focus for us being in charge. Exactly, Tori. I love that. And that's so true. When you know your ideal audience, it allows you to better position yourself to write with authority. You understand that your audience is looking for a particular need, looking for a problem they want solved, looking for a solution. And if you position yourself as having that solution for them, then you'll be more likely to grab their attention and they'll be more likely to be interested in what you have to say. Really great point. Thank you so much for that, Tori. And Tori says, love the example. Yes, exactly. And I'm glad it was helpful for you. Absolutely. We want to make sure that we are drilling down and getting into as much detail about our ideal reader as we can. It's really important that we are just kind of having that clarity. And I'm glad that example really helped you to understand the value of knowing who your ideal reader is. All right. And so now that we've talked about how the fact that your book is not for everyone and why you need to know who your ideal reader is, let's dig into how to identify who your ideal reader is. We're going to get really practical today. So the first thing you want to do is start with your own demographics, your interests, your background, maybe your knowledge, your education level, your experience, different things like that. Because many times you are actually your own ideal reader. Now, this is not always the case. I want to be clear, but many times you are writing to a different version of yourself from 3 to 5 years ago, or maybe further back, right? You're writing about things that you've learned over the course of your journey, over the course of your life, and you're sharing them with that ideal reader who often is kind of like you, but just in a previous point in time. And so it's good to many times to use yourself as an example of an ideal reader. And that can be a good place to start. Think about what things you like, what types of books you like, what types of books you've already read along the same subject lines of the book that you're currently writing, the book you're currently working on. And keep those things in mind. And that can help you in terms of figuring out what your ideal reader might be looking for. Again, not always the case, but in many cases, it is actually a good place to start. The next thing you want to do is to identify, if you're writing fiction, identify the characters in your book and consider who might identify with those characters and the challenges that they're facing. Let's say you're writing a book about a young woman who has just had a bad breakup and just lost her job, and she's trying to figure out who she is. She's trying to find herself, and and she moves to a new town, right? To start fresh and find something new, right? A lot of, romance novels tend to start out that right way, but just an example, right? But if you think about that as an example, you think about what people who are going through similar things in their lives might be looking for when they are reading a book, right? If they're reading fiction or and they're looking at the characters and they're being inspired by their lives, or they're maybe just looking to escape from their own lives. And so they may see themselves in that particular character or in any of the side characters as well. And so that looking at the characters in your book, if you're writing fiction, can be a great place to get ideas in terms terms of an ideal reader as well. Especially if you think about the challenges that they're facing, things like a job loss or a bad breakup or health challenges or all of those different types of things. People who are dealing with resilience and having to overcome those kinds of challenges. Many times people who are dealing with similar challenges will be able to relate to your characters, and that gives you a good place in terms of thinking about who might be able to relate to your book and who that ideal reader might be. It's another different dynamic of that. The next one is to examine the themes in your book. Now, this is true whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction. If your book is talking about being able to, overcome, a bad financial situation, for example, or being able to get healthy and different healthy habits that you could be learning about, or and the character, maybe you're writing fiction and the character is trying to get their health back on track, and they, maybe they're making changes in their lifestyle, changes in their habits. What are those themes? What are those ideas that you are driving home, either through the story in fiction or just through the narrative in your nonfiction, right? What are those main principles that you're talking about in your story? Are you talking about finding love again after you've had a bad breakup? Are you talking about overcoming those health challenges? Are you talking about being able to pivot and find a new career after you've been disappointed in the past? What are those recurring themes that are coming up in your work that you can speak to, not only in the book itself, but in terms of marketing and in terms of thinking about who your ideal reader might be? That's another good place to look for ideas and think about when you're trying to identify your ideal reader, is the themes. Another thing you want to do is to research books that are similar to yours, and identify the traits and the demographics of the people who usually buy those other books that are similar to yours. Many times these are called comps, which is short for comparables, or books that are similar to yours, right? And so you're going to look for those books that are similar. You can find them many times on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com, different places like that, where you can just do that basic research, start looking for books that are similar to yours that have already been written. Now, this is not a bad thing if you find a good number of books that are similar to yours. Believe it or not, many writers can feel discouraged when they see other books out there that seem similar to yours. But this is a myth, and it actually can be a good thing when you see books out there that are like yours and seem to be very similar, because what it means is there's already an established audience for the book that you're writing. There's already a market out there that is interested in what you have to say. And especially if you've seen books that have already been successful in that same genre or in that same subject matter that you're writing about. Now, there's a flip side to this where too much competition can be a negative thing. But even with that, there many times are ways to pivot with your book and pivot with your approach to it that can still help you to be able to break through in that market. That's more advanced teaching than what we're going to get into today, in a different type of topic. But the point is that there are really there's a lot of potential out there, even if you see several books that have been published that seem similar to yours. That means that there's already been an established track record for books in that particular subject, that particular vein, that are similar to yours. And that means if people are willing to buy books that are already out there that are similar to yours, they'll probably be willing to buy yours too. And so that's a good reason to hope when you see that happen. And then the other thing, ChatGPT can be helpful here as well in terms of brainstorming who might be interested in your book and just being able to identify your ideal reader. You don't necessarily want to use that as your only source of research, right? You definitely want to do your due diligence in terms of researching your ideal reader. But it can be a good starting point in terms of getting ideas and starting to think through this process. All right. Another thing you want to do to help you identify your ideal reader is to engage with potential readers online. And this can be, there's lots of different places where you can do that. There's blogs, there's newsletters, there's social media for sure. Anytime, any place that you have an established audience already, or even going in and looking at, other people forums and different things like that, where people are talking about topics that are related to your book, right? If let's say you're writing a book about gardening, for example, then you could go into some groups where people are talking about gardening and really just listen and engage and have conversations with people and find out about what some of their frustrations are, what some of their questions are, what some of those things, what are their pain points and what they're looking for in the books that they read about that particular topic. That can be a great way to find ideas and to help you refine the ideas for your book that you already have. So make sure that you go into those different places and really try to engage with people as far as what they're looking for. Now, this is not the time to really push your book heavily and try to just don't spam people, right? Many times you'll get kicked out of those types of forums and different places if you're just going in there saying, buy my book over and over again, right? We want to go in with an attitude of serving and being curious and helping and having conversations. And so looking for ways to really ask questions, especially asking people what they're thinking about, what they're struggling with, what kind of problems they're having. Many times I have found that people will tell you exactly what they're looking for if you're willing to ask. All right, let's get into some comments here. Tori says that's a great starting point, especially for those struggling to identify their audience. Such a great point to write from our younger perspective. Absolutely. And I'm glad that that's helpful. And I think this is especially helpful if you're getting established in a particular area, a particular field or industry where, some of us might struggle with some of that imposter syndrome and feeling like we don't have the experience, feeling like we don't have enough knowledge. But truly, I think in many cases, it can be helpful to look at it that way. If you're writing to your younger self, that takes some of the intimidation out of it, that takes some of the even anxiety or fear out of it when you realize you don't have to have all the answers. You just need to be a little bit further ahead in the process. And many people I find who struggle with imposter syndrome actually have more experience, a lot more experience and understanding about a particular topic or issue than they realize. And sometimes we really do live in our own heads a little bit as far as that goes. So absolutely, I'm glad that is helpful. And Tori also said, I remember having to get over that fear, and I was given the example of the cereal aisle. Listen here, I love that so much. And I went through that not too long ago where I went out and I was picking up some cereal and I was like, there are 1,001 brands of cereal here in the grocery aisle. And so I think we've all had that experience. And it's just so interesting how even though you would think that there's only one or two types of cereal that you really need essentially, right? And that may be technically true, but we have all these different options, all this variety. And yes, that is a beautiful example of how there is always room for more perspectives, more ideas, more solutions and things that are presented in a unique way. And I think that really brings value in terms of helping us understand our own uniqueness that God has given us as kingdom writers and how he uses us and uses our uniqueness to make an impact for him. So absolutely, I love that example. All right. And then next, we want to make sure that we are creating avatars that represent multiple ideal readers. Go detailed with it. Don't shy away from this. You can create names, occupations, interests, really be specific about it and create this ideal reader in your mind and make sure you're writing down all of the details of these potential avatars that you have. These are going to represent the different types of multiple readers that you may be speaking to with your work. Now, they're not the only people that you're writing to, obviously. This is just something that we're creating for our own personal use, but it can really help you crystallize in your mind who you're writing to, who you're trying to connect with your work, and help you to really just keep that in the back of your mind as you're working your way through the writing process, to make sure that you're taking that time to get really clear, and to keep those specific avatars in mind as you write throughout the writing process. That can be really helpful in terms of just helping you connect with that potential reader and helping you to really frame your work through that lens of what they're looking for, what they're worried about, and what their pain points are. It's really important for you. It also helps you take the focus off of you and the type of book that you want to write, and you having just being, kind of focused on yourself, right? And there's nothing wrong with us writing for ourselves and getting enjoyment out of that. But having those specific avatars in mind is really going to help you to not have the focus entirely on yourself, but to make sure that you are writing from a position of serving throughout the process. So I believe that will be very helpful for you. All right. So I really hope that this video helped you today. I hope it encouraged you and gave you some specific, clear strategy in terms of how to identify your ideal reader and helping you understand why they're so important. Every writer needs an ideal reader, and every writer needs to keep their ideal reader in mind at every phase of the writing journey. The sooner you have that ideal reader established and the clearer they are in your mind, the more effective I have found that your writing will be. And so I want to encourage you to take some time today to go through these examples, go through this list of suggestions, and start putting together your own ideal reader. So I would say that's your homework for today. Go ahead and start thinking about who your ideal reader is and what are the things that they care about, and beginning to frame your work around that and being able to reach them and and serve them as best you can. All right, let's go into the comments one more time. Tori says, the avatars keep me from going on tangents. I realize I am way too harsh when I talk to myself. Thank you for this incredible teaching. Amen, Tori. I'm so glad to hear that from you. And that is awesome that you are able to really put that into practice. And I love what you said about being harsh, and realizing that about yourself, and understanding that you don't need to be hard on yourself. It's so important, especially in terms of knowing who your ideal reader is. I think it does make it easier, and we can kind of take that deep breath and have that relief that comes when we know who we're writing for and how we need to write for them. And it gives clarity and wisdom, and yes, absolutely, a sense of peace. So I pray that you experience that all of you experience that, who are watching this video and who will watch it as you go through this process. I pray that you experience that as you begin identifying who your ideal reader is. And I'm so grateful that this teaching has been a blessing for you, Tori. Thank you. So if this video was helpful for you all today, go ahead and subscribe and share this with someone you know who could use some encouragement in their writing journey. Make sure you like and leave a comment below letting me know what you're working on and what questions you have about how to write God's way. I would love to help in any way that I can and to be a blessing to you in any way that I can. So that's it for today's live stream. I pray that it blessed you and encouraged you and challenged you to keep moving forward. And I will see you next week, same time, same place. I'll see you in the live stream. And until next time, take care and God bless. Happy writing.